All right, everybody. Good morning. It is 9 o'clock on the East Coast. Hope everybody's doing well. Once again, we hope everybody is safe and healthy at home during this crazy time. So please do not hesitate to reach out if there's anything we can do from a section standpoint. Again, we're trying to be a hub and a resource for everybody to keep you updated as best we can, locally, nationally, information from each individual state or from PGA of America. So anything you need from us, please do not hesitate to reach out. And we do appreciate everyone joining in on all these webinars. They've been very popular the last few weeks. So we'll continue to do that as long as we can. I am going to pitch it over to Matt for a few housekeeping things before we get rolling.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. If you've been on these webinars the past few weeks, you've heard this before, but for the new folks, I'll go over it, a few items here. If you have any technical issues and need to troubleshoot anything, please use the chat feature. There's a chat box up in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Put any questions in there. Unfortunately, most issues that might pop up are probably due to internet connection. So there may only be so much I can do, but I will certainly try to work through any issues you might have. Throughout the presentation, if you will please remain muted, that would be wonderful, so there isn't any ambient noise while Jeff is presenting. There is a button at the bottom of your screen, little round icon that looks like a microphone. You can click that, it will turn red. That means you're muted. And if you're called on or have a question at the end, you can unmute yourself by clicking that red icon again. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please use that chat feature I just mentioned, and I will prompt Jeff as needed. There is one button I would like you all to stay away from during the webinar. There's a button at the bottom of your screen that says Present. Please stay away from that because that will take over the screen and interrupt Jeff's presentation. Lastly, if any PJ members or associates have called in to the webinar today, please send me an email at mfrey@pgahq.com. We'll just take that information and make sure you get your MSRs. That is all I have. I'll turn it back over to Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So today's presenter is your current section president. He is a national award winner when he is not managing a Ronderman Golf Club, growing out his hair, or dealing with a global pandemic. He is also an avid skier. He is a member of the National Rules Committee. Your friend and mine, Mr. Jeff Kitty. Come on, buddy.
Good morning, everybody. Just like Jeff said, I hope everybody's doing well with health and staying safe and trying to stay busy. Fortunately, we've had outlets like this to keep ourselves busy and still keep talking golf. I know it's nice to at least talk about golf, even though we're not playing golf or teaching golf or running anything too golf related right now. Before we get too far, I'm going to pass it over to my man Clark for a little morning wake up.
Hello, everybody. Always have to do this. Very important in this kind of time. Let's do a little patriotic song. You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you wave. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue, where there's never a boast or brag. And if old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on that grand old flag.
Thank you, Clarky. Next, I think Thursday session, I heard that Carp was going to be singing, so we're all going to tune in for that.
We're working.
But I also want to thank Clark for organizing these rule seminars or webinars that we're doing for the next few weeks or a couple weeks. Heck, we've got 70 people on again this morning, so that's great. I also want to thank Jeff and Matt for all their coordination for all the education webinars that we've been having go on. A lot of different topics, a lot of different subjects that we can all stay fresh with, which has been great and a bit of a relief. I also want to thank them for all the communication in general, trying to keep us, like Jeff said, that it's a communication hub for us. It's only helpful. I know I've shared a lot of it with my members as well. Let's roll into the rule seminar. I've got rules 11, 12, and 13 to cover today. It's one big one with rule 11 and then two relatively short ones with 12 and 13, but with some decent changes from 19. They're almost old hack by now. But let's get rolling right into this if we can. All right, rule 11. Ball in motion accidentally hits person, animal, object, deliberate actions to affect ball in motion. I'm sure this was covered. I missed the seminars last week. But how the rules are set up now, with the purpose statement to begin, kind of outlines what's going to happen in this rule, kind of gives us a little bit of direction, and then the rest of what this rule is going to cover here. Like I said, this is a bigger rule, so we've got all of this to cover. Rule 11 covers what to do if the player's ball in motion hits a person, an animal, equipment, or anything else on the course. When this happens accidentally, there is no penalty, and the player normally must accept the result, whether favorable or not, and play the ball from where it comes to rest. Rule 11 is also going to restrict the player from deliberately taking actions to affect where any ball in motion might come to rest. Right? So I think we tested the sound, and it might be a little quiet for you today. It's just none of these platforms, be it Google Meets or Zoom or anything, doesn't seem like the audio comes through quite as well. Matt says when he records, he's going to try to transpose the sound to be a little bit louder for anybody that watches it afterwards. So if you miss any of the audio and you want to go back to the recorded session, I think he's going to be able to do that. This rule applies anytime a ball is in motion, whether after a stroke or otherwise, except when a ball has been dropped in a relief area and has not yet come to rest. That situation is going to be covered by Rule 14. Okay. So David Stabler, who's the head of rules education for the USGA, is actually a local Philly guy. He's a member at Rolling Green. Put the questions earlier in the slides this year, and his thinking was, he says, you're generally not ready to learn unless you're ready to ask a question. So he kind of has prompted us with a question in the beginning of the slides to keep us thinking, get us thinking about what's going to transpire during this the slide presentation here. So I'll just read the question portion. In stroke play, player A's ball is on the fringe next to the putting green in the general area, and player B's ball is on the putting green. Player A putts from the fringe, and while her ball is in motion, B makes a stroke at her ball. While both balls are still moving, they collide. What is the correct ruling? And we'll go over the different answers here later in the presentation. All right, so that first part that we saw, no penalty to any player. If a player's ball in motion accidentally hits any person or outside influence, there's no penalty to any player. It's a big change for us in 19. So the key word there highlighted is accidentally. This is true even if the ball hits the player, the opponent, any other player, or any of their caddies. Or if it hits any equipment. Of course, we've got an exception. Ball played on the putting green in stroke play. If the player's ball in motion hits another ball at rest on the putting green and both balls were on the putting green before the stroke, the player gets the general penalty, 2 strokes. So that's in stroke play only. Obviously, with general penalty and stroke play, it's a 2-shot penalty. So Ginger would have gotten the 2-stroke penalty there. If a player's ball in motion accidentally hits any person or outside influence, the ball must be played as it lies, except in 2 situations. First exception is when the play was not from the putting green, and the second exception is going to be when the play was from the putting green. Okay, so first exception, when a ball played from anywhere except putting green comes to rest on any person, animal, or moving outside influence, the player must not play the ball as it lies. Instead, the player must take relief. So we've got a few different examples here in the pictures. I think that's Rory McIlroy. The ball actually went into that young man's pocket. You know, the red shirt. You got a dog that took off with a ball and a ball that landed in the back of a maintenance vehicle and is now traveling elsewhere. Going to be hard to play all those balls as it lies. The ball's anywhere except on the putting green, and when the ball is on the putting green, these are the 2 examples of how we're going to take the relief. When the ball is anywhere except on the putting green, the player must drop the original ball or another ball in this relief area. Establish a reference point first. That point's going to be the estimated point right under where the ball first came to rest on that person, animal, or moving outside influence. Okay, so if this young man in the red shirt hadn't moved from when that ball landed in his short pocket, we're just going to go straight down below where that ball is, and that's going to be the reference point. Size of the relief area measured from the reference point is 1 club length, but with these limits, must be in the same area of the course as the reference point and must not be nearer the hole than the reference point. When the ball is on the putting green, the player must place the original ball or another ball again. You know, we have to give them the option of another ball. If that dog took off and never came back with the ball, you'd have to give them the opportunity to substitute another ball. So it's going to be the original ball or another ball on the estimated spot right under where the ball first came to rest on the person, animal, or moving outside influence. And again, we're going to place this one. This is on the putting green. We're going to place it. And using the procedures for replacing a ball under 14.2b and 14.2e. Section 2, when ball played from the putting green accidentally hits any person, animal, or movable obstruction, including another ball in motion on the putting green, the stroke does not count, and the original ball or another ball must be replaced on its original spot. A clarification here, kind of an interesting one. Living insects or animals. Exception 2 to Rule 11.1b applies to living insects since they are animals. So kind of an interesting one, that insects are considered animals, and luckily he didn't see the ball hit that insect, because if he had seen it and hadn't replayed the stroke, he would have been subject to penalties. So I think that opens Pandora's box a little bit. There's a lot of insects on the greens, and I'm curious to see if that one stays. We can talk to Clark about that one when we get through the slideshow here. Okay, so known or virtually certain is going to need to be applied here. Exception 2 to 11(1)B is to be applied using the known or virtually certain standard. Therefore, if there is knowledge or conclusive evidence that the ball played from the putting green accidentally hit a person, animal, or movable obstruction on the putting green, the stroke does not count. Okay, ball in motion hits another ball at rest or a ball marker on the putting green, and then ball in motion accidentally hits flagstick or person attending the flagstick. This is exception 2. Into the first part here. Ball in motion hits another ball at rest or ball marker on the putting green. The stroke counts and the ball must be played as it lies. Okay, we're going to refer to 11(1)A for whether a penalty applies in stroke play. No penalty to any player, exception ball played on the putting green. So this, again, that example of Ginger hitting that putt and then hitting the other ball, she is going to get a 2-shot penalty. The ball played from a putting green. Ball in motion accidentally hits flagstick or a person attending the flagstick. This is covered by Rule 13(2)B, which we will get to in a little bit here. It's not covered by this rule. Another clarification here, playing from where ball came to rest when stroke does not count is playing from a wrong place. Okay, so if a stroke is canceled by an opponent or does not count under a rule, it is disregarded from the player's score as if it never took place. If the player does not replace the ball but instead plays from where the ball came to rest, he or she has played from a wrong place. 14(7) is going to apply. So if we didn't cancel that stroke and we kept playing, we will have then played from a wrong place. All right, back to our original question here. What was the correct ruling? So each player must play there. So player A's ball is on the fringe next to the putting green. So that's in the general area, and player B's ball is on the putting green. Player A putts from the fringe. While her ball is in motion, player B makes a stroke at her ball. While both balls are in motion, they collide. What is the correct ruling? Let's read them here. Each player must play their ball from where it comes to rest. After the collision, there is no penalty to either player. Player B's stroke does not count and must be replaced and replayed. Player A must play the ball as it lies. There is no penalty to either player. Each player's stroke does not count and must be replaced and replayed. There's no penalty to either player. I can't read this bottom one. There I go, I can move that. Each player must play their ball from where it comes to rest after the collision. Player A gets no penalty and player B gets 2-stroke penalty for making a stroke while player A's ball was in motion. So not really a classroom setting, so I'm not gonna call on anybody. So B was our correct answer. Player B's stroke does not count and must be replaced and replayed. Player A must play her ball as it lies. There's no penalty to either player. Okay. Player B played from the putting green, so they have to cancel and replay. Player A played from the general area, from off of the green. So she simply plays the ball as it lies. Matt, any questions coming up?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, 11(2). Ball in motion deliberately deflected or stopped by a person. When 11(2) applies, these are our 3 different parts. We're going to cover A, B, and C. Right into it. Again, our question for 11(2). In which one of the following scenarios does 11(2) penalty apply to the player? I can clear my throat. Sorry. 7.2 applies. This rule applies when it is known or virtually certain that a player's ball in motion was deliberately deflected or stopped by a person. The person deliberately touches the ball in motion. An example here. Ball's rolling down that path, heading toward the tent. That woman made a nice kick save. And for this example's sake, the out of bounds line was where that concrete started. So that woman kicked the ball basically back into play, back onto the golf course. Or the ball in motion hits any equipment or other object, except the ball marker or another ball at rest before the ball was played or otherwise went into motion, or any person, such as the player's caddy. Ball motion hits the player deliberately positioned or left in a particular location. So this is the equipment that a person deliberately positioned or left in a particular location so that the equipment, object, or person might deflect or stop the ball in motion. An exception here, ball deliberately deflected or stopped in match play when no reasonable chance it can be holed. An opponent's ball in motion that is deliberately deflected or stopped at a time when there is no reasonable chance that it can be holed. And when done, either as a concession or when the ball needed to be holed to tie the hole. It's covered by Rule 3.2A1, 3.2B1, not by this rule. So if you remember, that was a bit of a controversy at the time when this happened. I think this was 2018, 17 or 18. It was before the rules changed in 19. And Jordan swept up that ball while it was still in motion. And at the time, that was technically not permitted. So this is a nice change. So that ball had no chance. It needed to be holed, I think, for that particular situation. Either for, I think, for a tie or a half, and Jordan just scooped it up. And there was no way that that ball was going to roll back into the hole. So the rules now state that that's okay for him to do that. The opponent's ball in motion needs to be holed to tie the hole, and the ball is deliberately deflected or stopped by any person at a time when there is no reasonable chance it can be holed. The result of the hole has been decided and the player wins the hole. Conceding the next stroke, the player may concede the opponent's next stroke by deflecting or stopping the opponent's ball in motion, only if that is done specifically to concede the next stroke and when there is no reasonable chance the ball can be holed. For a player's right to have a ball or ball marker lifted before a stroke is made if he or she reasonably believes the ball or ball marker might help or interfere play. When penalty applies to a player. The player gets a general penalty if he or she deliberately deflects or stops any ball in motion. This is going to be true whether it's is the player's own ball or a ball played by an opponent or by another player in stroke play. An exception here, ball moving in water. There's no penalty if a player lifts his or her ball moving in water, and the water can be temporary water. We've got moving temporary water. We've probably got a pretty tough day at play. or in a penalty area. And taking relief under 16.1 or 17, abnormal course conditions or the penalty area rule. And 22 and 23 cover for foursomes and 4-ball, where the players acting on behalf of the side. All right, now we're going to talk about place where deliberately deflected or stopped ball must be played. If it is known or virtually certain that a player's ball in motion was deliberately deflected or stopped by a person, it must not be played as it lies. Okay, so we had that example of that woman kicking the ball back into play. On the picture on the right there. So the player must take relief. And we've got two different situations of where we're going to take that relief and how we're going to take that relief. Stroke made anywhere except from the putting green. I'm sorry, stroke made anywhere except for the putting green, yes. The player must take relief based on the estimated spot where the ball would have come to rest if not deflected or stopped. So we're going to try to figure out if that woman didn't kick it, where that ball would have come to rest, most likely. When the ball would have come to rest anywhere on the golf course except the putting green, when the ball would have come to rest on the putting green, or when the ball would have come to rest out of bounds. These are three different situations where we're going to explain here. When the ball would have come to rest anywhere except on the putting green, the player must drop the original ball or another ball in this relief area. And the relief area is going to be we're going to establish a reference point. The estimated spot where, and that reference point is going to be the estimated spot where the ball would have come to rest. Size of the relief area measured from the reference point is 1 club length, but with these limits. It must be in the same area of the course as the reference point and must not be nearer the hole than the reference point. So the same area of the course is speaking about the 5 specific areas that we have in the golf course: the general area, bunkers, penalty area, teeing area, and putting green. So we're going to determine the relief area has to be in the same area as that reference point. So if the reference point is in the general area, the relief area that the ball comes to rest in has to be in that same area. Right, when the ball would have come to rest on the putting green, the player is going to place the original ball or another ball on the estimated spot where the ball would have come to rest, using the procedures for replacing the ball under 14.2b and E. So similar to if our ball came to rest on a moving obstruction or something that we covered earlier, we're going to place the ball on the putting green. When the ball would have come to rest out of bounds, the player must take stroke and distance relief. So this would probably apply to a Michael Campbell video where that woman kicked the ball off of the concrete. That ball looked like it was headed toward those tents, that it was going to come to rest out of bounds. So that player would have to, Michael would have had to play stroke and distance. Stroke was made from the putting green. The stroke does not count, and the original ball must be replaced on its original spot. Cancel that stroke. Place the ball to where it was and play again. This is when it's deliberately stopped. All right, for our question again. In which one of the following scenarios does Rule 11.2 penalty apply to the player? Player concedes his opponent's next stroke and deliberately stops the ball while it is still in motion and has gone by the hole and will not be holed. In stroke play, a player deliberately stops the tee shot of another player in the group behind his from going into a penalty area. The player lifts his ball while it is in motion, while it is moving in temporary water in order to take free relief. We saw that that was okay. The player lifts his ball while it is moving in water in a penalty area to keep it from going out of bounds and to take relief in the penalty area. We saw it was okay to lift that ball too. So B was our answer here. A was that example with Jordan Spieth picking up Louis' ball too. So that was okay. All right, Matt, any questions on 11-2?
No, sir.
All right, moving right along. 11-3. When a ball is in motion, a player must not deliberately take any of these actions to affect where that ball, whether that's the player's own ball or another player's ball, might come to rest. Can't alter any physical conditions by taking any of the actions listed in 8.1a. The whole menu of them there. Moving, bending, or breaking. Move a loose impediment or a movable obstruction into position. Alter the surface of the ground. Remove or press down sand or loose soil. And removing dew, frost, or water.
Hey, Jeff, before you get too deep into 11.3, a question just came in on 11.2. Does 11.2 cover the Mickelson case? Any changes?
The Mickelson case, I assume we're talking about Shinnecock?
I would think so. He did not specify.
I don't think 11.2 covers that. Carp, help me out here if I'm wrong. I don't think 11.2 covers that.
Yeah, you're right, Jeff. That's covered by playing. He was penalized for playing a stroke at a moving ball. He had intent, forward movement of the club, so that's why he got the penalty for playing a moving ball. It was not considered a deliberate deflection. That's covered under Rule 10. What is it? 10.1d, a 10.1d, playing a moving ball.
Nice to have a safety net there. Thanks, Carp. Lift or move a loose impediment or a movable obstruction. The things we can't do. So here's a video of Camilo. Ball's rolling back to him after he played it up there. He swept away that, I think it was a divot. The ball rolled right through that area. So can't do that. There used to be another video of Paul Casey doing something similar. I think it was Paul Casey, and the ball was hadn't really crested to the top of the hill yet, and he swept away a divot in the same kind of manner. But he didn't know that the ball was going to be rolling back to him. So I don't think that video is in here anymore. We have some exceptions. Moving flagstick, a ball at rest on the putting green or any other equipment. We're allowed to. This rule does not prohibit a player from lifting or moving a removed flagstick, a ball at rest on the putting green, or any other player equipment. Other than a ball at rest anywhere except on the putting green or a ball marker anywhere on the golf course. So to move that ball or ball mark, to move that ball, it would have to be on the putting green. Moving the flagstick from the hole while balls in motion is covered by 13.2, not by this rule, and we will cover 13 in a little bit. I love this picture of Mickelson having the flag tended. I think that's Torrey Pines. He had to make that shot, so he sent Bones up there to tend the flagstick. Clark does this when he's got a makeable 80-yard shot. Outcome of this is clarification. Outcome of deliberate actions to affect ball in motion is irrelevant. The player is in breach of Rule 11.3, even if the deliberate actions does not affect where the ball comes to rest. Examples where the player gets general penalty under 11.3 and in stroke play must play the ball where it comes to rest include: the player's ball lies at the bottom of a slope. The player makes a stroke, and while the ball is rolling back down the slope, the player presses down a raised piece of turf. For the purpose of preventing the ball from coming to rest in a bad lie, the player here's another example. The player believes a rake lying on the ground may stop or deflect another player's ball in motion, so the player lifts the rake. So those players are going to get the penalty. Okay. And there's going to be no penalty when a player's ball lies at the bottom of the slope and the player makes a stroke and the ball begins to roll back down the slope. This is that example I was talking about with Paul Casey. Unaware that the ball was returning to the area from where it had been played, the player presses down a raised piece of turf without any intent to affect where the ball might come to rest. And also another example of no penalty. After making a stroke and while the ball is in motion, the player lifts a nearby rake to give it to another player for an upcoming bunker shot. The player's ball rolls through the area, and that rake was lifted from that area. And so it didn't do it with the intent to affect the roll where the ball was going to go. They were just picking up the rake to give it to another player or caddy for an upcoming bunker shot. So no penalty. And that's more about foursomes and four ball and actions treated as if they were the player themselves. (11.3) questions. All right. So that is Rule 11. Any further questions on 11?
Nothing yet.
Okay. Always go back to questions if something comes up. Let me go to all right. Rules 12 and 13, bunkers and putting greens. Bunker rule is a little bit shorter than putting green. 4 different parts are purpose statements, and then 1, 2, and 3 of Rule 12. Presentation is going to cover when a ball is actually in a bunker. How we're going to determine that. Things in a bunker that can be moved without penalty. Restrictions on your actions when your ball is in the bunker. Exceptions to these restrictions. Other relief rules that can apply when your ball is in a bunker. Okay, our purpose statement, Rule 12 is a specific rule for bunkers, which are specially prepared areas intended to test the player's ability to play a ball from the sand. So that part there about intending to test a player, test the player's ability, it keeps us from doing a couple things that we're allowed to do in other parts of the golf course. To make sure the player confronts this challenge, there are some restrictions on touching the sand before the stroke is made, and on where relief may be taken for a ball in a bunker. Is there a question? Which one of the following is a breach of Rule 12.2, playing a ball from a bunker, as long as there is no testing of the condition of the bunker? And this question a little bit easier after a Tigers tournament down to the Hero Challenge. We'll talk about that in a minute. Definition of bunker, a specially prepared area of sand, which is often a hollow, from which turf or soil was removed. These things are not part of the bunker. lip, wall, or face at the edge of a prepared area and consisting of soil, grass, stacked turf, or other artificial materials. So that arrow is pointing there to the earthen bunker lip. That is not part of the bunker. Got the famous church pews at Oakmont. Those are not part of the bunker. Soil or inside the edge of prepared area. Anything growing or attached, natural object inside of a prepared area. So we've got like a palmetto bush inside of a bunker. Back at Pine Valley, we have cactus inside a lot of the bunkers. They would not be part of the bunker. Sand that has spilled over or is outside the edge of a prepared area. So we've got some sand that spilled over. It looks like probably from the Sand Pro, whoever's operating the Sand Pro, not lifting the rakes in time and pulling the sand out. I'd say a more common situation for this is, abandoned dunes or some of the Great Links courses over in the UK. When it gets really windy, the sand actually just gets blown out in the direction the wind is going. And that sand that's outside the edge of the bunker is not part of the bunker. Also not part of the bunker, all other areas of sand on the course that are not inside the edge of a prepared area, such as deserts and other natural sand areas, areas that's sometimes referred to as waste areas. So we've got a picture here. I think this is Friar's Head up in Long Island. So we've got these natural areas. They're not treated as bunkers. They're part of the general area. As we previously talked about, the 5 different areas of the golf course, bunkers are one of the 5 defined areas. I say one of the specific areas. We've got the general area that covers all the areas that are not one of the other 4 specific areas. So bunkers are one of those 4 specific areas. The committee may define a prepared area of sand as part of the general area, which means it's not a bunker. A good example of this would be when we played the PGA Championship at Kiowa. All the sand was, at the time, it was played as part of, it was through the green, which is now the general area. So all of what looked like bunkers were part of the general area. Not very common. And I'm not quite sure. Cart might be able to tell us why they did that, but that meant that all the players could ground their club because they were in the general area. But all that sand at that time was played as part of the general area. The committee may also define a non-prepared area of sand as a bunker. So they could just treat all of this as bunker. And I think our good example for us locally here at Pine Valley, all sand is played as bunker. So then there's a lot of areas off to the sides of the holes that aren't maintained or prepared at all. But it's all played as bunker. Even the sand paths are treated as a bunker. You say were there when I worked there. I'm pretty sure they still are. When a bunker is being repaired and the committee defines the entire bunker as ground under repair, it is treated as part of the general area, which is just a long way of saying it's not a bunker. The word sand is used in this definition, and Rule 12 includes any material similar to sand that is used as bunker material, such as crushed shells, as well as any soil that is mixed in with the sand. So it'd be hard to sit there and say, all right, if you went inside that bunker and there was some soil that had gotten mixed in with the sand, it'd be hard to say, all right, this part is bunker and this part is not, because this is soil, not sand. So all of that is going to be treated as sand, as part of the bunker. The ball is in a bunker when any part of the ball touches sand on the ground inside the edge of the bunker. Pretty clear here. That ball is touching the sand. It is inside, and it's inside the edge of the bunker. That ball is in the bunker. It's inside the edge of the bunker and rests on the ground where sand would normally be. This is another example of when it would be in the bunker, such as where sand was blown or washed away by wind or water. So if there's inside the edge of the bunker, and the sand wasn't there, but it was supposed to be there, it was just blown away, the ball is still in the bunker, we're going to consider it to be lying in the bunker. If it is inside the edge of the bunker and rests in or on a loose impediment, movable obstruction, abnormal course condition, or an integral object that touches sand in the bunker, or is on the ground where sand would normally be, all of those would be in the bunker. So this picture here shows a ball lying, sitting on top of a rake, which is sitting in the sand. That ball is in the bunker. That ball that's lying on an island of grass in the middle, that ball is not in the bunker. The ball lies on soil or grass or other growing or attached objects inside the edge of the bunker without touching any sand, the ball is not in the bunker. If part of the ball is both in a bunker and in another area of the course, this is how we're going to determine which area of the course the ball is deemed to be laying in. Part of the ball is in two specific areas of the course. It is treated as lying in the specific area that comes first in this order: penalty area, bunker, putting green. So we've got a ball here that's touching both the bunker and a red penalty area. That ball is going to be in the red penalty area because that penalty area in the order of the pecking order here is it comes first. If that ball were touching the bunker and a putting green, it would be in the bunker. Well, can't think of an example where I think I may have seen at Stream Song. I think I saw there was one hole where the putting green extended right to the edge of a bunker without having any general area in between. I think that's the only place I've ever seen it. But in that situation, if it was touching both parts of the course, it would be in the bunker, not on the putting green. This rule applies both during round and while play is stopped. Before playing a ball in a bunker, a player may remove loose impediments under Rule 15.1 and movable obstructions under Rule 15.2. This includes any reasonable touching or movement of the sand in the bunker that happens while doing so. Key word here being reasonable. Clarification. Improvement resulting from removing loose impediment or movable obstruction from a bunker. When removing a loose impediment or a movable obstruction from a bunker, sand is often moved as a result of removing the object. There is no penalty if this improves conditions affecting the stroke. The actions taken to remove the loose impediment or movable obstruction were reasonable. Again, reasonable being the key word. Some restrictions on touching the sand in the bunker. 3 different parts here. When touching sand results in penalty, before making a stroke at a ball in a bunker, a player must not deliberately touch sand in the bunker with a hand, club, rake, or other object to test the condition of the sand to learn information about the stroke. Touch sand in the bunker with a club. We can't touch sand in the bunker with a club in the area right in front of or right behind the ball. So this player here has grounded the club right behind the ball in the sand. We can't do that. Can't touch him making a practice swing. or in making the backswing for a stroke. Touching sand does not result in a penalty, except as covered by 1. This rule does not prohibit the player from touching sand in the bunker in any other way. And we can dig our feet in to take our stance, either for the stroke or to take a practice swing. We can dig our feet in. We can smooth the bunker to care for the course. This is encouraged, obviously. We can place clubs or other equipment or other objects in the bunker, throwing or setting them down. We can touch a sand when we're measuring, marking, lifting, replacing, or taking other actions under a rule. So this player is obviously touching the sand as they're measuring a club length. That's okay. Leaning on a club to rest, stay balanced, or prevent a fall. The person here is just leaning on their club, waiting for their turn to play. They're okay. Striking the sand in frustration or anger. Another clarification here. When a player may probe in a bunker, confirms that a player may probe anywhere on the course, including in a bunker, without penalty, to determine if tree roots, rocks, or obstructions might interfere with his or her stroke. As long as the player does not improve the conditions affecting the stroke, the person is okay. However, if the purpose for the probing is to test the condition of the sand, the player is in breach of 12.2b1. So we're okay to probe for kind of safety reasons there, but if we're doing it to test the condition, then we're going to have some issues. But the player gets the general penalty if his or her actions in touching the sand improve the conditions affecting the stroke. Conditions here affecting the stroke: the lie of the player's ball at rest, the area of the player's intended stance, the area of the player's intended swing, player's line of play, and the relief area where the player will drop or place a ball. There are deliberate actions to alter other physical conditions to affect the stroke. Player's own ball at rest or stroke to be made. There's deliberate actions to alter physical conditions to affect another player's ball at rest. So it's a reference to 8, 2, and 3, improving or worsening other physical conditions to affect play. There are no restrictions after a ball is played out of the bunker. After a ball in a bunker is played and is outside the bunker, the player may touch sand in the bunker without penalty. This is Charles Schwartzel. The ball is out of the bunker into another bunker. There's no penalty for that. Smoothing sand in the bunker to care for the course without penalty. No restrictions on that. No restrictions after ball is played out of the bunker. This is true even if the ball comes to rest outside the bunker and the player is required or allowed by the rules to take stroke and distance relief by dropping a ball in the bunker. I had a ruling at the a National Club Pro at cricket. I think it is now. It's now the 9th hole. I think it was the 9th hole then too. It was after the routing was changed. This short little hole was the 6th hole at one point, I think. I might not be right on that, but it's the 9th hole now, and the player out of the fairway bunker sculled the ball, went over the green back by that guardrail, turned out to be out of bounds. So the player came back, and the player hadn't raked the bunker when they walked out of the bunker for some reason, they came back and they asked me if they could rake the bunker before they dropped in the bunker. And at the time, we were dropping at shoulder height, so that was even less fun than it is now dropping in a bunker. And say, can I rake the bunker? And the player asked me, can I rake the bunker? And I was pretty sure. I said, yeah, you can rake the bunker before you take your drop. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah. He said, are you sure? Now I started to doubt myself. So the player played on, and of course I had to look it up, and I'm freaking out that I was going to be wrong, but unfortunately I was right. So the ball wasn't in the bunker before he took the drop, so he could rake from where he had played. The sand in the bunker is on the player's line of play for the next stroke from outside the bunker. So you can see this animation here. Play away from the hole. Walked over to get the rake. I believe this is showing. Okay. Even though that was on the player's line of play for the next stroke, they're okay to smooth that area from where they just played. If the ball played from the bunker comes back into the bunker, or the player takes relief by dropping a ball in the bunker, the restrictions in 12.2b1 and 8.1a again apply to that player for the ball in the bunker, in play in the bunker. So if the ball comes back in, doesn't get out, let's say, then we're going to be under those restrictions. When a ball is in a bunker, specific rules may apply in these situations. Interference by abnormal course condition, interference by dangerous animal condition, and unplayable ball. So those could still affect how we play for a ball in a bunker. A lot of abnormal course conditions can happen in a bunker. I was playing in an event down in, it wasn't really an event, it was an industry convention thing. We were down in Cozumel, and there was a crocodile on a par 3 in a bunker. So that actually got me out of the bunker. And for the dangerous animal condition, got me real far away. This thing was like 12 feet. It was an actual crocodile instead of an alligator too, which was unusual. That was an unusual place to play. All right, our question that we had, which one of the following is a breach of Rule 12.2, playing in a bunker, as long as there is no testing of the condition of the bunker? Accidentally touching sand in a bunker with your backswing for a stroke, leaning on a club in sand while waiting for your turn to play, digging in with your feet to take practice swings away from your ball, or literally tossing a club down in a bunker. So which one of these is a breach? Like I said, this got a little bit easier from the example that we saw from Patrick Reed at Tigers tournament out in the Bahamas. His backswing moves sand, and that is not permitted. We can lean on a club while we're waiting for our turn to play, as long as we're not testing the condition of the bunker. We can dig our feet in for a practice swing or our actual shot. So that's okay. And deliberately tossing a club down in a bunker, we're okay with that too. Placing or throwing down a club in a bunker is fine. All right, any questions on Rule 12?
Just a tongue-in-cheek question from Mr. Tom Carpus. He asked the difference between a crocodile and an alligator.
I think one's saltwater and one's not. I think crocodiles are saltwater. So I don't know that for sure, but all right, Rule 13. A few more moving parts to it than bunkers, than Rule 12. This presentation covers when a ball is on the putting green. Special privileges players get on the putting green that they don't get elsewhere. Things that are prohibited on the putting green. What is required if a ball or ball marker gets moved? Proper relief procedure if a ball is on a wrong green. Players' options for dealing with the flagstick. Special rules that apply when a ball overhangs the lip of the hole. And our purpose statement. Rule 13 is a specific rule for putting greens. Putting greens are specially prepared for playing the ball along the round, and there's a flagstick for the hole on each putting green. So certain rules apply than other areas of the course. Good short question here. Which one of the following cannot be repaired on a putting green? Damage caused by shoes, aeration holes, holes of embedded acorns, or deer hoof prints. Definition of putting green: the area on the hole the player is playing that is specially prepared for putting, where the committee has defined as the putting green. Put that part in there in case it's a temporary green. You know, if the green is out of play for some reason and they need to declare something else as the putting green for that hole. It might not necessarily be specially prepared, but we have to define it. The putting green for a hole contains the hole into which the player tries to play a ball. Again, the putting green is one of the defined areas of the course, 5 defined areas of the course. Putting green for all other holes, which the player is not playing at the time, are wrong greens and part of the general area. So we've got an aerial here where the yellow arrow is pointing to the putting green of the hole being played. So that is the putting green. All those other greens, I think we've got 2 other greens for other holes and a practice green. All of those greens are wrong greens, and they're part of the general area. The edge of the putting green is defined by where it can be seen that the specially prepared area starts, such as where the grass has been distinctly cut to show the edge. A pretty clear line here in that picture. Unless the committee defines the edge in a different way, such as by using dots or lines. I played an event at Inverness, the Inverness Club in Toledo last year, and the approaches were mowed so tightly that it was tough to see the delineation between the green and the approach, that they actually put down dots where the approach married into the green, so you could kind of determine the edge. They're the tightest approaches I've ever seen. If a double green is used for 2 different holes, the entire prepared area containing both holes is treated as the putting green when playing each hole. So we've got the second hole and the second green and the 16th green, or the second hole and the 16th hole at St. Andrews. And that is treated as, if you're playing the second hole, that whole area is treated as the putting green for the second hole. And when you're playing the 16th hole, that entire area is treated as the putting green for the 16th hole. But the committee may define an edge that divides the double green into 2 different putting greens, so that when a player is playing one of the holes, part of the double green on the other side of the edge that is used for the other hole is a wrong green. So if they wanted to, they could create a line that separates them as 2 different greens. Oakmont does that for their 9th green and their practice putting green. But I think they actually make it, that defining line, I think they actually make it out of bounds, if I'm not mistaken. All 1 green connected, but they have a line that separates the 2. I believe it makes it out of bounds. Any green on the course, so a wrong green, this is the definition, any green on the course other than the putting green for the hole the player is playing. So our same example there, all of those are wrong greens. Wrong greens include the putting greens for all other holes that the player is not playing at the time. The normal putting green for a hole where a temporary green is being used. So if they had to use a temporary green, the committee, declared that was a putting green for that hole. The green that is normally being used on that hole would become a wrong green. All practice greens for putting, chipping, or pitching, unless the committee excludes by local rule. And again, wrong greens are part of the general area. They're not one of the 4 specific areas of the course. Definition of hole: the finishing point of the putting green for the hole being played. The hole must be 4 1/4 inches in diameter and at least 4 inches deep. Excuse me. If a lining is used, its outer diameter must not exceed 4 1/4 inches, and the lining must be sunk at least 1 inch below the putting surface, unless the nature of the soil requires it to be closer to the surface. If it was too firm to get it any lower than that, but try to make it at least 1 inch. Okay, so this is just kind of a clarification. Hole, the word hole, when not italicized, is used throughout the rules to mean the part of the course associated with a particular teeing area, putting green, and hole. Okay, so when it's not italicized, it's that whole area. Whole area meaning W-H-O-L-E. A lot of holes. Play of a hole begins from the teeing area and ends when the ball is holed on the putting green. Okay, 13.1. A lot of parts to this. Purpose statement: this rule allows the player to do things on the putting green that are normally not allowed off the putting green, such as being allowed to mark, lift, clean, and replace a ball. Also, to repair damage, removing sand and loose soil on the putting green. We can't remove sand and loose soil anywhere else. They're not loose impediments, but we can remove them on the putting green. In addition, there's no penalty for accidentally causing a ball or ball marker to move on the putting green. All right, how to determine when the ball is on the putting green. The ball is on the putting green when any part of the ball touches the putting green, or if it lies on or in anything and is inside the edge of the putting green. A loose impediment or an obstruction would be something that it might lie on or in. Part of the ball is on the putting green and in another area of the course. We're going to refer to that pecking order. And again, I think it would be a pretty unusual situation for the ball to be touching putting green and then something other than the general area. It could happen. If a penalty area was painted right at the edge of the putting green or a bunker. Again, more times than not, if the ball is touching 2 different areas of the golf course, it's probably touching the putting green and the general area. But again, it could happen. It could be different from that. A ball on the putting green may be lifted and cleaned. The spot of the ball must be marked before it is lifted, and the ball must be replaced on its original spot. Okay, improvements allowed on the putting green. During a round and while play is stopped under Rule 5.7a, a player may take these 2 actions on the putting green. Removal of sand and loose soil, like we talked about, and repair of damage. No matter whether the ball is on or off the putting green, we can do either of those things. And again, sand and loose soil on the putting green may be removed without penalty. But again, not anywhere else on the golf course. At club level, this is probably a more common violation. Repair damage. A player may repair damage on the putting green without penalty by taking reasonable actions to restore the putting green as nearly as possible to its original condition. One of our really, really big changes in 2019 was this. Okay, again, that was a big, big change for us and a real welcome change, especially for players playing later in a draw. Okay. They can only repair the damage by using his or her hand, foot, or another part of the body. I like that part. I'm going to use my elbow to tap down spike marks. Or a normal ball mark repair tool, tee, club, or similar item of normal equipment. And without unreasonably delaying play. But if the player improves the putting green by taking actions that exceed what is reasonable to restore the putting green to its original condition, examples would be creating a pathway to the hole or by using an object that is not allowed, the player gets the general penalty for Rule 8.1a. Damage on the putting green means any damage caused by a person or outside influence. So that's John Pillar out in the fairway there on the picture on the right. They get a lot of moose up there at Woodlock. Other such as damages would be ball marks, shoe damage, shoe scrapes. We've got a senior group of men that play on Tuesdays, and we run the rollers after they go out behind them because there's so much foot dragging. I love the old guys, but they should just go to flat sole shoes. Scrapes or indentations caused by equipment or flagstick. The things that we can change we can repair old hole plugs, turf plugs, seams of cut turf, and scrapes or indentations from maintenance tools or vehicles. Animal tracks or hoof indentations. Embedded objects such as a stone, acorn, or a tee. Clarification here. Status of damage from hail. Damage on the putting green caused by hail may be repaired. I think we'd have other problems if we had to play an event that day than just those marks. The damage on the putting green does not include any damage or conditions that result from normal practices for maintaining the overall condition of the putting green, such as aerification holes and grooves from vertical mowing. Or irrigation, rain, or other natural forces. Natural surface imperfections such as weeds or areas of bare, diseased, or uneven growth, or just the natural wear of the hole. Those are things that we couldn't repair. There are two specific rules for a ball or ball marker that moves on the putting green. So the first one here. No penalty for accidentally causing a ball to move. There is no penalty if the player or opponent or another player in stroke play accidentally causes the player's ball or ball marker on the putting green. Accidentally moves the player's ball or ball marker on the putting green.
Under the 2019 rules, if you accidentally move your ball or ball marker on the putting green, there is no penalty. For example, if you accidentally move your ball in the corner
pretty friendly for us. We're going to replace the ball in its original spot. Or we're going to place the ball marker to mark that original spot. Exception, ball must be played as it lies. When ball begins to move during the stroke, backswing or stroke, and the stroke is made. And so we're just going to play the ball as it lies. It's not a great animation, but basically the player started the stroke and then the ball moved and then the stroke was made. We're just going to play that ball as it lies. If the player or opponent deliberately lifts the player's ball or ball marker on the putting green, let's see 9-4-9-5 to find out if there's a penalty. Natural forces cause a player's ball on the putting green to move. Where the player must play from next depends on whether the ball had already been lifted and replaced on its original spot. So let's go through these two scenarios. When to replace ball moved by natural forces. So the first one here is ball already lifted and replaced. Ball must be replaced on its original spot, even though it was moved by natural forces and not by the player, the opponent, or an outside influence. So here's a video of Tiger. Doesn't have any sound. So you saw him replacing his ball after he had marked it. Ball must have just moved a tiny bit. Because he had marked and replaced his ball, and the ball was moved by natural forces, he's going to replace the ball where it originally was. Since he owns that spot, once he marks and lifts that ball. So here we go. We're going to talk about this further. A player's ball is on the putting green and has interference from an abnormal course condition. The player decides to take relief under Rule 16.1d. Once the ball is placed, it is treated as if it has been lifted and replaced under Rule 13.1d2. For example, a player's ball is in temporary water on the putting green. He or she decides to take relief and places the ball on the spot at the nearest point of complete relief. While the player is preparing to make the stroke, natural forces cause the ball to move. The player must replace the ball on the spot at the nearest point of complete relief. Okay, so because that player proceeded in taking relief from the temporary water, we're considering that person to have marked and replaced the ball already. So they're going to have to replace that ball to that point, that reference point of nearest point of complete relief. So again, just to summarize this, after you mark and replace the ball, no matter what causes the ball to move, we're going to replace it on its original spot. Now, our second scenario here, ball not already lifted and replaced. The ball must be played from its new spot. So that ball had not been lifted and replaced. The ball rolled. We're just going to play it from where it is. During a round and while play is stopped under Rule 5.7a, a player must not deliberately take either of these actions to test the putting green or wrong green. So this is under 13.1e, no deliberate testing of the greens. You can't rub the surface or roll a ball. Exception, testing green between two holes. Between two holes, a player may rub the surface or roll a ball on the putting green of the hole just completed and on any practice green. This looks pretty foreign to us in stroke play because we've watched tour events where they're not permitted to do this. Committee procedures. The committee may adopt a local rule prohibiting a player from rolling the ball on the putting green if the hole just completed. As I was just talking about when we watch golf on TV, they're not permitted to do this on the PGA Tour. Okay. Relief must be taken from wrong green. Two different parts here. The meaning of interference by wrong green. Interference under this rule exists when any part of the player's ball touches a wrong green, lies on or in anything, such as a loose impediment or obstruction, and is inside the edge of the green. So this ball is laying on a towel that's inside the edge of a wrong green. Or if a wrong green physically interferes with the player's area of intended swing or area of intended or the area of intended stance. That would mean they have interference, stance, or area of intended swing. The relief must be taken when there's interference by a wrong green. Player must not play the ball as it lies. You don't have the option. We have an example at Aronimink. Our 8th green and 10th green are side by side, and they're connected by some closely mown grass. And oftentimes when 8 plays downwind, it's a long par 3, balls can roll down off the back of the green and roll onto the 10th green. And people would want to putt that anyway because it's just through short grass. And they say, well, I'm not going to play, I'm not going to use a wedge or something. I'm just going to putt it, so I'm going to play it. And I try to explain that they don't have the option just because they're putting it. It happens quite a bit for us. Instead, the player must take free relief by dropping the original ball or another ball in this relief area. I'm going to find that reference point again, and that reference point is the nearest point of complete relief in the same area of the course where the original ball came to rest. Okay? So that the ball came to rest on a wrong green, and as we talked about earlier, that wrong green is in the general area. So the reference point has to be in the general area. The size of relief area measured from the reference point is 1 club length. But with these limits, must be in the same area of the course as the reference point, which is going to be the general area, and must not be nearer the hole than the reference point. And there must be complete relief from all interference by the wrong green. And complete relief is going to be for the lie of the ball and the stance as well. All right, no relief when clearly unreasonable. There is no relief under 13.1f if interference exists only because the player chooses a club type of stance or swing or direction to play that is clearly unreasonable under the circumstances. An example here are our 12th hole at Aronimink. The 15th green comes into play sometimes when somebody blows one way to the right, and had a player who the ball was just off the edge of the green. It was in a pretty crummy lie, and they turned around and said, "All right, if I try to play this left-handed, I'll be standing on the green and I need relief." That would be clearly unreasonable for that circumstance. You wouldn't normally play a left-handed shot from 180 yards, so as a right-handed player. So that would be an example of clearly unreasonable. Jeff, clearly unreasonable is hard for me to say. It's kind of like success. Tough word for me. So this is more of the multiple breaches. Which one of the following cannot be repaired on the putting green? Damage caused by shoes. We said that was okay. Aeration holes, I don't think we can do that one. Holes of embedded acorns, we can do that one. We can repair that one. And deer hoof prints, or for John Piller, moose hoof prints. So aeration holes is the one that cannot be repaired. Any questions on 13.1? It's the bigger part of Rule 13.
Yeah, we had a ask to clarify if a ball The ball must be touching the putting green to be considered on the green. So if it's not, or if it's overhanging the green, that is not considered on, correct?
Overhanging.
Right. So I guess like the
If it was in a tree that was overhanging, it would not be on the. It needs to be touching part of the green, the end of the green. Or if it were, I guess, really long rough or something that the ball is overhanging the edge, it would not be on it. It's not like out of bounds where the margin goes up and down.
And then Brian Schulte just asked, what about playing a full swing from the fringe on the wrong putting green? Would you recommend a player not play from there?
Well, it depends. I mean, if there is a model local rule that you could put into play, that if that the relief area would have to be at least, I think you can measure out what the relief area has to be that gets you off of that. But that fringe is part of the general area that's not on the green. So unless it was spelled out in that local rule, if a ball, let's say ball landed on the fringe and is not on the green, that ball, it would not be, that player would not be able to get relief. But there is a model local rule in there. It's a little bit longer in text. I had it in play last year at the club, but it just, nobody's going to read it anyway, so I took it out this year. But there is a model local rule, Brian, if you wanted to look at it. Obviously, we probably wouldn't want a full-size divot on our fringes, but.
Hey, Jeff, just a quick point that if the player was standing on the wrong green and the ball was on the apron, that in the new world of 2019, that player does have interference and must take relief.
Correct. Yeah.
I think in most cases that's probably going to happen. But just to clarify, it used to be just the lie of the ball. Now both the stance, lie of ball, and area of intended swing too would be also included in that interference for wrong green.
Well, you probably have depending on direction of play. I mean, if you flip it around, the other player's playing the other direction, you got a 50-50 chance if the ball's on the fringe. Whether or not the player's going to be standing on the green or not. Or if they're right-handed or left-handed, it's going to determine whether or not they might be standing on the green if the ball's on the fringe. But interference used to only be before 19. Interference used to only be for the lie of the ball only. But it's now for the stance as well. All right, for the flagstick, which one of the following is false? A player who deliberately moves the flagstick to an uncentered position. We'll read all of these at the end. It's a longer one. I'm not going to read that twice. Okay. I always, when we're taking the test, I dislike the questions where it says which one of the following is false. I feel like we're always kind of looking for things of fact, looking for things that are true. So I struggle with the questions where they say which one of the following is false. Okay, this rule covers the player's choices for dealing with the flagstick. The player may leave the flagstick in the hole or have it removed, which includes having someone attend the flagstick and remove it after the ball is played. But that player must decide before making a stroke. There is normally not a penalty if the ball in motion hits that flagstick. Normally. This rule applies to a ball played from anywhere on the course, whether on the putting green or not. All right, definition of flagstick: a movable pole provided by the committee that is placed in the hole to show the players where the hole is. I always thought it'd be funny if we had that Robin Williams skit here where they say he just puts a little white flag out there to give you hope. The flagstick includes the flag and any other material or objects attached to the pole. And the requirement for a flagsticks are stated in the equipment rules. Okay. 4 different parts here we're going to cover in 13.2a. Part 1, the player may leave flagstick in the hole. The player may Make a stroke with the flag stick left in the hole so that it is possible for the ball in motion to hit the flag stick. This is now okay. And coming out of our COVID-19 restrictions, I think that we're going to see a whole lot of that flag stick staying in the hole for a while. Player must decide this before making the stroke by either leaving the flag stick where it is in the hole, or moving it so that it is centered in the hole and leaving it there, or having a removed flag stick put back in the hole. In either case, the player must not try to gain an advantage by deliberately moving the flag stick to a position other than centered in the hole. That word centered is, there's a few words in the rule book now that are spelled for the kind of the English spelling. If the player does so and the ball in motion then hits the flag stick, he or she gets the general penalty. If the player makes a stroke with the flag stick left in the hole and the ball in motion then hits the flag stick, there is no penalty, and the ball must be played as it lies. So that ball is just going to be played as it lies there, just off the edge of the hole. No penalty if it's a flag stick left in the hole, except as provided in 1. Limitation on player moving or removing flag stick in the hole while ball is in motion. After making a stroke with the flag stick left in the hole, the player and his or her caddy must not deliberately move or remove the flag stick to affect where the player's ball in motion might come to rest. So, let's say that was the player's caddy. I don't think it was, but let's say it was player caddy. The ball was hit, and then the caddy walked over there and removed the flag stick while the ball was in motion to avoid, so the ball would avoid hitting the flag stick. If this is done, the player gets the general penalty. But there is no penalty if the flag stick in the hole is moved or removed for any reason, such as when he or she reasonably believes the ball in motion will not hit the flag stick before coming to rest. So if the ball was way off in direction, or if it was past the hole, and then the player, the caddy, moved the flag stick, the player would be okay. Limitation on other players moving or removing the flag stick when players decided to leave it in the hole. When the player has left the flag stick in the hole and has authorized anyone to attend the flag stick, another player must not deliberately move or remove the flag stick to affect where the player's ball in motion might come to rest. Okay, so this is when they have not authorized anyone to attend the flag stick. So the same. The other players have to do the same thing. You have to abide by the same rules as the player or the player's caddy. So that other player moved the flag stick. The other player is going to get the penalty for possibly affecting that ball. If another player or his or her caddy does so before or during the stroke, and the player makes the stroke without being aware of this, or does so while the player's ball is in motion after the stroke, the other player gets the general penalty. But there is no penalty if the other player or his or her caddy moves or removes the flag stick for any other reason, such as when he or she reasonably believes that the player's ball in motion will not hit the flag stick before coming to rest. So the same situation we talked about for the player or his caddy before. Or is not aware that the player is about to play or that the player's ball is in motion. So if they don't know that that player was playing or the ball was in motion, they're not going to be penalized for moving the flagstick. Yeah, I'm talking about foursomes and 4-ball where partners are treated the same as the player or the caddy. All right. Removing flagstick from the hole, 2 parts. Player may have flagstick removed from the hole. The player may make a stroke with the flagstick removed from the hole so that his or her ball in motion will not hit the flagstick in the hole. The player must decide this before making the stroke by either having the flagstick removed from the hole before playing the ball, or by authorizing someone to attend the flagstick, which means to remove it by first holding the flagstick in or above or next to the hole before and during the stroke to show the player where the hole is, and removing the flagstick after the stroke is made. The player is treated as having authorized the flagstick to be attended if the player's caddy is holding the flagstick in, above, or next to the hole, even if the player is not aware the caddy is doing so. Or if it's standing next to the hole when the stroke is made. So this caddy is standing, directly next to that hole like that. That caddy is attending the flagstick, even if the player is not aware the caddy is doing so. Or if the player asks any other person to attend the flagstick and that person does so by holding the flagstick in, above, or next to the hole, or standing right next to the hole. And the player makes the stroke without asking that person to move away or to leave the flagstick in the hole. So if this other player was standing next to the hole like this, and if I'm the player and I see that person standing there, I should consider that they are attending the flagstick. And if I don't want them to, I should tell them to move away. Otherwise, we're going to consider that person to be attending the flagstick. All right, what to do if ball hits flagstick or person attending the flagstick? If the person's ball in motion hits a flagstick that the player had decided to have removed under 1, what happens depends on whether this was accidental or deliberate. Or if it hits the person who is attending the flagstick or anything the person is holding, again, what happens is going to depend on if this was accidental or deliberate. The player's ball in motion accidentally hits the flagstick, the person who removed it or is attending it. There is no penalty, and the ball must be played as it lies. A big change here. So if it was accidental, no penalty, just play the ball as it lies. If the person who is attending the flagstick deliberately deflects or stops the player's ball in motion, Rule 11.2c applies. And where the ball is played from, the player must not play the ball as it lies. Instead, must take relief under 11.2c. So 11.2c, where the ball, place the ball where deliberately deflected or stopped ball must be played. Stroke made from anywhere except the putting green. Estimate the spot where the ball would have come to rest. And stroke made from the putting green, cancel and replay. It refers back to 11.2c, which we just covered. And when the penalty applies, if the person who deliberately deflected or stopped the ball was a player or his or her caddy, that player gets the general penalty for the breach. For purpose of this rule, deliberately deflected or stopped means the same things as in Rule 11.2a. It includes when the ball is when the player's ball in motion hits a removed flagstick, an attended flagstick, or the person who had attended or removed the flagstick. So if a removed flag stick that was deliberately positioned or left in a particular place on the ground so that it might deflect or stop the ball. So if this player's caddy laid that flag stick down because it was extremely downhill and they didn't want the ball to roll too far, that would be a deliberate action that it might deflect or stop the ball. An intended flag stick that the person deliberately failed to remove from the hole or to move out of the way of the ball. And so they made the choice just to deflect it and not remove the flag stick. The person who intended to remove the flag stick when he or she deliberately failed to move the ball out of the hole. I'm sorry, to move the ball out of the way of the ball. Deliberately moving objects or altering conditions to affect ball in motion exception, moving flag stick, ball at rest on the putting green, and any other equipment. A removed flag stick can be deliberately moved to keep the ball from hitting it. So that flag stick that was laying down can be moved to keep a ball from hitting it. All right, 13.2c, ball resting against the flag stick in hole. If the player's ball comes to rest against the flag stick left in the hole, if any part of the ball is in the hole below the surface of the putting green, the ball is treated as hold even if the entire ball is not below the surface. So we've got a player here where they've hit a putt and it's leaning against the flag stick, and part of that ball is clearly below the surface. That ball is treated as hold. And if it's leaning against the flag stick, there's a really, really good chance that some of that ball is below the hole, without being able to show you in person. If that really, they said a couple people from the USGA explained to me, one of the only ways they figured you could have a ball leaning against a flag stick and not below the level is if you took the flag stick, laid it down on the ground across the cross section of the hole. That would be basically the only way. So it's a really high likelihood, if that ball is leaning against the flag stick, that part of that ball is below the surface. If no part of the ball is in the hole below the surface of the putting green, the ball is not hold and must be played as it lies. If the flag stick is removed and the ball moves, whether it falls into the hole or moves away from the hole, there is no penalty and the ball must be replaced on the lip of the hole. Multiple Breaches Act again, 13C4. Stroke play, the player is disqualified if he or she fails to hole out as required under Rule 3.3c. All right, so 13.2. Which one of the following is false? Player who deliberately moves the flag stick to an uncentered position and makes a stroke gets the general penalty whether or not the ball is deflected or stopped by the flag stick. And we'll come back to that. A player decides to leave the flag stick in the hole and plays the ball. While the ball is in motion and before it reaches the hole, another player deliberately takes the flag stick out of the hole so the ball won't hit it. The player gets the general penalty. That's true. Let me read that again, I'm sorry. My dog snoring in the background, I get distracted. The player decides to leave the flag stick in the hole and plays the ball. While the ball is in motion before it reaches the hole, another player deliberately takes the flag stick out of the hole so it won't hit it. That player gets the general penalty. That's true. That player gets the penalty. A player accidentally deflected or stopped. A ball accidentally deflected or stopped by an intended flag stick or a removed flag stick is always played as it lies. Accidentally, no penalty, and we play the ball as it lies. A ball deliberately deflected or stopped by an intended flag stick or a removed flag stick is never played as it lies. That is true also. So we'll go back to A. A player who deliberately moves the flag stick to an uncentered position and makes a stroke gets the general penalty whether or not the ball is deflected or stopped by the flagstick. So this is false. You're only going to get the penalty in this situation if it hits that flagstick that has been altered. Questions on 13.2?
Yeah, Jeff, I'm going to ask Steve to unmute himself. He had a question, but I'd like him to clarify it. He asked about if a ball would have to hit a flagstick for a penalty. So, but I'm not sure exactly what portion of 13.1 he was referring to, or 13.2, I'm sorry. Steve, if you can unmute yourself.
So let's just say, I mean, if my caddy is attending the flagstick, or not attending the, let's say they're not attending the flagstick, and I putt, and my caddy walks over and moves the flagstick, takes the flagstick out of the hole, I'm going to be subject to the penalty, even if it hits the flagstick. Or not. I guess, yeah, just a clarification on that question. I'm not quite sure what they're asking. We can come back to it. All right, 13.3, ball overhanging the hole. Different parts here we're going to cover. Okay, waiting time to see if ball overhanging the hole will fall into the hole. If any part of the player's ball overhangs the lip of the hole, the player is allowed a reasonable time to reach the hole. Player hits the putt. Gives it the body English to try to go in, and a reasonable time to walk up to the hole. Player is then allowed 10 seconds to wait to see whether that ball will fall into the hole. So reasonable time to reach the hole, and then 10 more seconds. If the ball falls into the hole in this waiting time, the player is holed out with the previous stroke. If the ball does not fall into the hole in this waiting time, the ball is treated as being at rest. And if the ball then falls into the hole before it is played, the player is holed out with the previous stroke, but is going to get one penalty stroke added to the score. So this player putted, was allowed the reasonable time to walk up to the hole, waited 10 seconds, and 5 seconds later the ball fell into the hole. The player is treated as pulling out with its previous stroke, but then gets one penalty stroke on top of it for this total score. If the ball overhanging the hole is lifted or moved before the waiting time under 13.3a has ended, the ball is treated as having come to rest. The ball must be replaced on the lip of the hole. The waiting time under Rule 13.3a no longer applies to the ball. If the opponent in match play or another player in stroke play deliberately lifts or moves the player's ball overhanging the hole before the waiting time has ended, in match play, the player's ball is treated as holed with the previous stroke, and there is no penalty to the opponent. Okay? So that's favorable for the player there. A little less favorable here in stroke play. The player who lifted or moved the ball gets the general penalty. So that person's going to get a 2-shot penalty for lifting the ball, and the ball must be replaced on the lip of the hole. And again, there's no more 10 seconds or anything left. The ball is going to be at rest on the lip of the hole. Questions on 13.3?
No, sir.
Any questions on 12 or 13 in general? or 11, 12, or 13, any of the rules that we covered. All right, no other questions. That's going to be it for the day. And I want to thank Clark for organizing these. Obviously, it's not as good of a classroom setting as a classroom setting, but it's better than not doing anything. Jeffrey, do you have anything else to add before we leave? If you're still on,
I am. No, thanks, buddy. Great job. Again, thanks to Clarky and Carpy for all their help in getting this squared away. I appreciate all of you taking your time and helping everybody out and get a little bit of an escape from the four walls that we're all trapped into. So, I would say, at this point, we'll continue our calendar of webinars. We have we got Thursday, Matt, right? And then we have our happy hour, our first ever happy hour on Thursday at 4 o'clock. So if you can join us, we're going to have a little get together for everybody. So hopefully folks can take a little bit of time and join in. And then we have another schedule next week, Tuesday, Thursday, and planning on another event on Wednesday as well. So you'll see some details come out about that. So Matt, anything else we need to highlight?
No, I think you've covered it all. Like Jeff both mentioned earlier, this recording will be up on the website later this week. So if you need to go back to refer to anything, it'll be on our webinar archive page.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. Jeffrey, thank you, buddy.
yeah, thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Everybody have a great day.